Now entering the truth zone, deep into the vortex of the information revolution with your host, Michael B.
This is Michael B, and I am your host for the Truth Zone on this Tuesday morning, May 16th, 2017. And you'll have to excuse me a little bit. You're gonna probably hear me do silent belches today. A little indigestion, little trouble at home. I tell you, Milo Yiannopoulos is right. He was on Alex Jones months ago, and he talked about issues between men and women, and he's right. We alpha men, more and more, are falling back to working out and playing video games. It's true. I'm married again. They say 3 times the charm. No, not really. And well, you reach a point where you're just tired of the craziness. So I'm working out 6 days a week, and I'm playing video games more than I ever did, and I'm watching pro wrestling Monday through Thursday nights. And I'm thinking of taking guitar lessons again, but I'm going to use Rocksmith on the PS4 to do that. The young guys at Best Buy recommended it, so I'm going to take a shot. Yeah, my advice to you people out there that have aspirations of getting married, pick a woman or a man, if you're a woman, because the only legitimate marriage is between men and women. Pick someone with the exact same spirituality and philosophy as you. Trust me on this, please. And that includes interaction between the two of you, and if you aspire to have children. And I recommend reading out of the Bible 1 Corinthians chapter 7, in which Paul talks about how to have a successful marriage and the requirements that each spouse must make to each other. And I truly believe that if you and your husband or wife follow Paul's guidance, you will have much, much happiness. So yesterday we finished off with Bridget Gabriel, who founded Act for America. She is an activist. She is world-renowned in her revealing of terrorism, Islamic terrorism throughout the world. This is day 4 of Islam on trial, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be finishing it tomorrow. And just to give you a heads up, it's going to segue into our immigration crisis, which isn't just the Mexicans, it's immigration in general. And I've got I got 2 fantastic clips that are going to beautifully illustrate why both countries, the country with the people fleeing, and then the country receiving all of these immigrants, legal or not, how they're both damaged. And this man uses a gumball machine to beautifully illustrate. And of course, obviously, you won't get the visuals, but he explains it very well on the damages of immigration influx. And I'm also going to educate all of you. You know, the liberals like to use, well, you know, we received everybody in the 20th century. Well, that wasn't exactly true. And the status of America was starkly different, say, in 1917 as opposed to 2017. But we'll get into that probably Thursday. So, let's continue on with Bridget Gabriel.
We have a number of boys on fire. It looks like the plane.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to crunch 1,400 years of Islamic history.
Sorry, folks, it went back to the beginning because I refreshed the studio. So for those of you that listened to it yesterday, please bear with me. I'm not going to interrupt. We only covered 5 minutes of it.
In 5 minutes and make it as exciting as I can possibly make it. Because I hated history when I was a little girl. At this age, I appreciate history. And now I understand why they say those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. In order for you to understand why Western civilization is very different than the Islamic world, you need to understand the history of Islam. When Prophet Muhammad supposedly revealed his revelation from the angel Gabriel that he is supposed to be the last of the prophets in the early 600s, he started preaching in his own city, Mecca. He tried to recruit friends and followers to be able to spread his religion. And he tried for 12 years and failed. And after 12 years, he was only able to recruit his immediate family and friends. So he decided, if I go to Medina, which was the Jewish hub of Arabia, the business hub where the Jews lived, if I go there and preach my religion to them, if they accept me, that will buy me respect and stature between my own people, and they will accept me. So Prophet Muhammad started borrowing a lot from the Old Testament to make his religion more palpable to the Jews, to make it a lot similar. This is why you see a lot of similarities between Judaism and Islam. For example, Jews don't eat pigs, Muslims don't eat pigs. Jews pray a few times a day, Muslims pray a few times a day. Jews fast on Yom Kippur, Muslims fast on Ramadan. And this is why you started seeing a lot of good writing in the beginning of the Quran when Prophet Muhammad was saying all the good things about the people of the book. He took his message and went to Medina trying to recruit the Jews, talking about the people of the book, talking about how similar the two religions are. When they refused to accept him and follow him as the last of the prophet, that's when he turned against them and started killing them and started expelling them. That's when Islam went from a spiritual movement for the first 12 years of Islam into a political movement cloaked in religion after the year of the Hijrah, after Muhammad went to Medina and the Jews did not accept him. He became a military warrior and declared war on them and started expelling them. Jews and Christians became dhimmi, or second-class citizens. They were only allowed to stay alive and not be killed only by paying the jizya or the protection tax. So they had a choice: convert to Islam, or if you want to stay alive, you have to pay the jizya or protection tax, living as dhimmi in the Islamic nation. Christians and Jews could not ring church bells. Jews could not blow the shofar. Christians could not ring church bells. They could not pray publicly. Christians and Jews could not gather together and build new churches or new temples. And the way they paid the jizya or the protection tax was in a monthly ceremony where they would get together downtown and the Jew would kneel on his knee and hand his goods to the mullah, who would take the goods as the price for buying the protection. And in many areas, Jews and Christians were given necklaces to wear as a receipt that they paid their jizya or their protection tax. Jews considered najis under Islam. Najis is bodily fluid. Najis is garbage. Najis is dogs. Najis is dirty. So Christians and Jews were treated as second-class citizens. Islam continued to grow. As Islam grew, more people became dhimmi or second-class citizens. Jews and Christians were given identifiable clothing. The yellow star, which was given to the Jews that most people think is a German invention. It was actually an Islamic invention in the 9th century in Iraq by the second Khalif al-Mutawakkil of Iraq, who invented the yellow star for the...
Adolf Hitler stole a lot of stuff. He stole the emblem of the eagle, which belongs to the Roman Empire. He was hot for the Roman Empire. That's why that was the Fourth Reich. So, she explained that. I was gonna cut in and say, yeah, that yellow star is awfully familiar. So, we see how totalitarianism have very common denominators, which I believe is why Islam is being used today by the globalist hand as the hammer to global and national independence. You forget the word global, national independence and Christianity and populist nationalist philosophy. So you have to understand why Islam is being used, because there are a lot of common denominators between the orchestrators, between the puppet masters and the puppet of Islam. Bridget continues.
Jews to be identified as they walked down the street. Because Jews were considered najis, if a Muslim man or a Jew walked on the same side of the street, the Jew had to cross the other side so the Muslim man can walk, so he's not dirtied by the filth of the Jew. Christians were given the zunnar, the belt, which most of you men are wearing right now. That was an Islamic invention for the Christians. Islam continued to grow. They went all the way to Jerusalem. They conquered Jerusalem. Christians couldn't ring their church bells in Jerusalem. The Pope in Rome in 1090 told the Christians, how could you sit idly by and allow your brethren to suffer like this in the Holy Land? You need to go liberate the Christians. You need to go help the Christians. That's why the Crusaders were launched. The Crusaders...
See, I'm going to stop right there. I like how atheists and pagans love to vilify the Christians and try to equate them to the Muslims, and they always use the Crusades. Well, what about the Crusades? As Bridget is pointing out, the Christians started the Crusades in reaction to centuries of offenses by the satanic cult. Okay? It was in reaction to. And it was the Pope at that time. I want to say Pope Innocent, but I probably have that wrong. Approached the kings of Western Europe and said, hey, you got to get in there. Your fellow Christians are being treated as slaves. Get in there and take back the Holy Land and make it free for Christians to pilgrimage and pay homage to their Lord and their holy sites. And that's where the Knights Templar came in. They actually created the first international banking system. As you're well aware, there wasn't paper money. You used gold coin, and maybe even silver. I'm not going to swear to that, but probably. So naturally, right, the more coins you have, the heavier it is. Plus, you're open to being robbed on the King's Highway. So the Knights Templar devised a system where they would set up an outpost. Let's say you had 50 gold coins, and you didn't want to carry all 50. You want to carry 10, because the next outpost was X miles down, and it would take X amount of days to get there, right? So you need to make some stops, right? Food, possibly lodging, maybe. So let's say you want to deposit 40 coins and just hold on to 10. You were given a piece of paper that said you've got 40 coins left. You make it to the second outpost, you present that piece of paper, and let's say you want to take another 10, leaving you 30. They crossed out the 40, they gave you your 10, and they put 30 on your paper, and on down you went. Now, of course, I'm sure there was interest to be paid, so there was obviously some sort of a fee, right, to keep the outposts open, because you got to pay guards, and the whole schmear. And that's how the Knights Templar became so wealthy, one of the reasons, but they created the first international banking system. So it was the urgency of the Pope in Rome in response to, not as an offensive measure, not as the initiator, but as the response to the enslavement and inhumane treatment by this satanic cult. Bridget continues.
The Crusaders were not launched because they just felt like waking up in the morning and going and converting a bunch of Muslims or beheading them. The Crusaders were launched to liberate Jerusalem. And they were able to liberate Jerusalem for less than 100 years before Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, Saladin, took it back, and Jerusalem remained under Islamic control until 1967, when the State of Israel liberated Jerusalem, where Christians, Jews, and Muslims could pray under the same sky. The Crusaders continued fighting Islam, and for 300 years they tried and failed. And by the 1300s, the Crusaders disappeared because they could not win against Islam. Islam continued to expand. They went all the way to Central Europe. They went all the way to China. They went to India. They conquered Spain. They changed the name of Spain from Spain to Andalusia. And they started, as they advanced, as they conquered more nations, more people paid the jizya, or the protection tax. And this is how the Islamic Empire grew. It went all the way until they was stopped at the gates of Vienna on 9/11. 9/11 is not a date that Osama bin Laden just picked out of a hat. 9/11 is a symbolic date in the Islamic calendar. Between the 1600s, Islam had covered more of the earth's surface than the Roman Empire did at its peak. Between the 1600s and the 1800s, the Europeans were experiencing the European Industrial Revolution, where the Europeans were able to invent products on factory lines, where they are able to make money and sell products, which gave them the money to build a strong army in order to fight the Muslims. And that's how they were able to stop them at the gates of Vienna on 9/11. The Europeans started the pushback against Islam. They pushed them out of Europe. They pushed them out of all the way to the Middle East and North Africa. By 1924, the Islamic Empire ended. In 1924, the Islamic Caliphate ended in Turkey by President Ataturk, who was a secularist. He ended the Islamic Empire, and he gave women rights to vote. He gave women a right to an education, a right to work, a right to...
And what that president did in Turkey in 1924 is exactly what Muammar Gaddafi did in Libya. It's what Bashir Assad did in Syria. It's basically what the Jordanians did as well. And as you could see, and even Saddam Hussein was a Ba'athist secularist. And this is why these countries have been taken out by the United States, funding ISIS, supplying them with weapons, and they want to replace these regimes with fundamental Islam to have total and complete control, fill our minds with terror, collapse Western Europe, collapse the United States, and create a one-world totalitarian government where the select elite own the best of everything, and the masses that are left over, after they make their depopulation goals, live in mediocrity and squalor. That is the end game. That's what's being pushed here. And not only are they using Islam as the hammer, that's the aggressive hammer, but the passive hammer is, of course, the culture war. And getting us infatuated with technology, with machines, right? Playing video games, think it's cool and trendy, that they want to meld us, right? Blend us in with machines so we can live forever, except you're not going to get that. No, they're going to get that. You're not going to get that. You know, Alex Jones makes references to publications like Wired Magazine, and you know how we could put our consciousness into a machine and live forever. I got to ask you a question. Do they weed out the trauma that you suffered in your life? Who wants to live forever with not just the good experiences that you had, but the bad experiences that you had? How many of you sometimes lie awake at night and go down memory sewer and think about the bad stuff that has happened in your life? Somebody's death, or a divorce, a bad relationship, maybe one of your children dying. Who wants to live forever and be tortured by those thoughts? What if you're bipolar? What if you're schizophrenic? Are they gonna sift out all that stuff and make you the perfect conscious being? I don't think so. I don't think that's on the docket. You know why? Because you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that Terminator paradise, if you will. No, they're gonna have it. You're not gonna have it. So, you know, that's something to think about, ladies and gentlemen, that, you know, as they move with technology and replace the need for human beings, we become expendable. And there's going to be a time when these jihadists are going to become expendable should the globalists, through this hammer, reach their goal of collapsing the last vestiges of freedom, the last vestiges of Christianity, and create their state god. See, they'll be expendable too. Just like we, the demi, and the scum, and the infidel of Islam, we're expendable to them, and vermin to them. They too will become the vermin. Bridget continues.
Choose a husband. He forbid women from wearing the hijab. He forbid men from wearing the beard. The Muslims hate him so much that they consider him a Jewish agent because they believe that his mother in her bloodline was Jewish, and that was the influence on
Jewish agent, and Trump's a Russian agent.
At the Turk. By the time the Islamic Empire or the Islamic Caliphate or the Islamic State ended in 1924, the Islamic Caliphate had existed for 1400 years, and it ended less than 100 years ago. By the time the Islamic Caliphate ended in 1924, 270 million people around the world were killed by Islam. 270 million. And we didn't have weapons of mass destruction, and there was nuclear weapons. All of these people were killed, butchered by the sword. The people in the world, less than 100 years ago, how many people knew this history? Please raise your hand. We in America have failed to educate our children about history. We in America failed to...
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why I'm doing this show. There was a person on Facebook who responded to yesterday's program and said, all you have to do is do your research and look around and you can see how terrible Islam is. Yeah, right. You got to do the research. And in this video clip, when Bridget asked how many people knew this bloodthirsty history of Islam spanning 1,200 years, 1,300 years at the time, leading up to 1924, very few raised their hands. That's the point. And I also wrote back, I said, the world needs messengers. See, that's why I'm doing this show. I'm doing this, I am a messenger. Because you just can't go around saying, well, Islam sucks, it's bad, and I don't want it in my town or in my country. That's not good enough. You have to be able to intellectualize why Islam is so bad. Spiritually and secularly. You have to be able to do that. You have to understand how bloodthirsty and evil Islam has been from day one. You have to understand this ideology has been built on deception and blood. Plagiarism, slavery, and terrorism. And you have to intellectualize that. And I am the messenger. I'm not doing this for any money. I'm not doing this for any accolade. I'm not doing this out of ego. I'm doing this out of my love for humanity. I'm doing this for the future generations coming up that are not taught this. Our schools have been infiltrated. Our media, our very minds have been infiltrated to believe that this is the religion of peace and it's just a few people. Wrong. The root is as rotten as its fruit. It will never bear good fruit. It will never be a positive influence on the world. It is an impossibility. It's a spiritual, metaphysical, and physical brick and mortar impossibility. It cannot happen. It will not happen. Only death and terror will follow, and it will grow as Islam grows. And we're going to wrap up this clip. She's still going pretty well. If it just starts to get, not too much informational, I'll cut it. And then I'm going to move on to Islam in a Nutshell, which is a great website. It's on teapartyorg.ning.com. And it's going to show you a statistical analysis of what happens when Islam grows. And in conjunction with that, I'm going to read off a list of daily Islamic terror attacks from around the world. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's every single day. And some of these people that come on the Alex Jones show, like yesterday, said, well, we wouldn't have this immigration crisis if we didn't go over and blow up their countries. They wouldn't want to come here and kill us. Wrong. That's not true. as Bridget pointed out, look how Islam started. Muhammad plagiarized the Old Testament, and from last week, his favorite wife said, well, it was the Archangel Gabriel that came to you, which I proved was a lie. And naturally, Muhammad would go to the Jews and say that Gabriel was the guy, the archangel that came to him, because Gabriel is God's messenger, Yahweh's messenger. And the Jews obviously know who the archangel Gabriel is because he was mentioned several times. And, just to segue a little bit, these spiritists, pagans, and psychics, and New Age people, very interesting. They like to invoke their version of Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel energy into their practice, right? But they refuse to acknowledge the third archangel mentioned in the Bible, known as Lucifer, also known as Satan the devil. So they like to tell you, no. There's no devil. There's no evil. You made an agreement in heaven as a soul to come down to earth and play as a human being and make mistakes and sin, and it's no big deal. It doesn't mean anything. And you go back to heaven and you have a good time, or you come back as another body, because there is no good and evil. There is no right or wrong. It's just a gray area. So they recognize the Archangel Michael, the Archangel Gabriel. They also talk about Mother Mary energy. Gee, Mary who? Oh, the mother of Jesus Christ? But they totally disavow any existence of Satan. Very convenient. Very convenient. So no. Muslims' attitude towards the Demi did not take place in 2003 when the United States invaded Iraq after 9/11. No. It started from day one. It's never going to heal. They're never going to become nice. They're never going to love anyone else other than the fundamental extremist Muslim, and they don't even love themselves. Love cannot be born out of a hateful root. It's an impossibility. So, no, it's not that Anglo-U.S. aggression. That's on the surface. That's what they want you to believe. See, they want you to believe that Islam and Muslims were so wonderful. The Christians and Jews and everybody else, they were wonderful people until the bad, evil white devil came into the Middle East, stole their natural resources, exploited their oil, changed the entire landscape, which I'm not saying that didn't happen. Sure, it happened. And then all of a sudden, they got angry and they're fighting for their territory and they're fighting for their existence. Wrong. Absolutely false. One final time. Islam is predicated and rooted in fear, terror, total control, and death. And the reason being is because their God, Allah, is really Satan the devil. Bridget continues.
Educate our population about history. Our children in high school, you take any 17, 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, and ask them about World War II. They can't even tell you what happened in World War II. For them, it's ancient history, and we still have our World War II veteran walking among us. That's how little we know of history. Islam ended in 1924, the Caliphate. People thought the Caliphate will never be resurrected. The Caliphate will never come back. But two things happened in the Middle East in the last century that made the Islamists be able to resurrect the Caliphate. Number one is the discovery of oil in Saudi Arabia, which we were able to discover and were stupid enough to allow them to nationalize it. And the number two that happened was Ayatollah Khomeini coming to power in 1979. That gave the Islamists the money and also the spiritual covering in order to explode on the world stage. And people say, oh, well, the Wahhabis exported their Wahhabi radical religion. The Wahhabis are the name of Wahhab. They're not a different sect of Islam. They follow the authentic preaching of Prophet Muhammad, the way Prophet Muhammad lived and practiced his religion. This is why neither you or me or any infidel can step a foot in.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, exactly. And you have to stop buying into the word speak. These people are not radical Islamists. They're not radical Muslim. They are extreme fundamentalists. And why I'm using the word extreme is because a fundamentalist will be tightly embedded in their ideology, yes, but extremists are every dot, every comma, every syllable. I mean, 100% totally fundamental. And they take that fundamentalism to the extreme in throwing people off of roofs, in setting people on fire, stoning them, beheading them, blowing up their own bodies to take as many infidels as they can. This is fundamental Islam. Get rid of the word radical. Get rid of the word progressive. They're regressives, putting us back into a feudal, indentured servant class. Homosexuals are not gay. Gay means happy and lighthearted. They are the opposite. They are depressed, suicidal, angry individuals because they know somewhere in their consciousness they are unnatural. These people on the left are not liberals. They are not here to liberate. They are fascists. They are the fascists and the totalitarians. They want free speech. No, they want their speech to be free. And if we don't conform, we get shut down. If we don't accept their ideology, we lose our business. We get fired from our jobs. Stop playing the political word speak, which, by the way, was an invention by the Russian Soviets. They're not radical, ladies and gentlemen. They're fundamentalists. Bridget continues.
Mecca, because as far as they're concerned, we are filth. And as infidels, we're not allowed to step a foot. Not President Obama and not anybody else. As a matter of fact, Al-Qaeda used to use Saudi Arabia and its success as an excuse to recruit members, as the example, to show them how Allah has blessed Saudi Arabia because of the way they adhere to the tenets of Islam. And today we talk about ISIS. ISIS is not a new invention. ISIS resurrected the caliphate that ended less than 100 years ago. Except we are too ignorant and too uninformed to understand what ISIS is doing and why ISIS is succeeding.
You see, folks, that's what the globalists feed on. They feed on our low information. They feed on our lack of knowledge. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here Monday through Friday, because I am the messenger of knowledge. And I'm giving you all, not that you need my permission, but I'm giving you my blessing. Please share my show everywhere. Take part of the clips, break it down, use audacity.com, shorten my show, send them what you think is most important to your friends. Share it on your social media sites. I have nothing proprietary other than the name thetruthzone.com, which I bought that domain. Other than that, take it, run with it, download it, share it, give it. Tell your friends, tell your family. Share the information. Knowledge is power, but ignorance is powerful to the perpetrators. Bridget continues.
Two things you need to understand about Islam and the principles of war in Islam. One is the law of taqiyya, which means lying and deception. It means that a Muslim man can lay his hand on the Quran and swear that he is telling the truth, knowing that he is lying, but also knowing that the Quran will forgive him because he is advancing the cause of Islam. The second thing you need to know about is that the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, which is an Islamic principle of war and a model on how to deceive your enemy when you have to sign peace treaties with your enemy. And it is based on an example by Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad was attacking the Meccans and their caravans when he was living in Medina. One day he attacked them because this is how he got the goodies. He would attack them, rob them, and spread the goodies among his men. And this is how he was able to recruit, because this is how people made money without working. And so he attacked the Meccan caravans. When he realized he's not able to defeat the Meccans in that city of Al-Hudaybiyah, in that place, he signed a 10-year treaty with them. Does that sound familiar? A 10-year treaty with them that says he will not attack them, he will have peace with them, he will not declare war on them. Muhammad used the treaty for 2 years to build his military, strengthen his army, and when he realized he was strong enough to attack his enemies when they least expected it, because they thought they had a peace treaty with Muhammad, he broke the treaty, attacked them 2 years later, and Mecca fell within 24 hours because they were not expecting the attack. And that became a principle of war in Islam. And to give you an example of how that is practiced, this is why anything signed with Iran means nothing to them. And to give you an example of how this law has been put to use in recent history, Yasser Arafat, who's not an Islamist, but he is a Muslim, met with the Israelis and signed the Oslo Accord in 1993. Remember all the handshaking at the lawn of the White House? The Oslo Accord, Yasser Arafat used the peace treaty, the Oslo Accord with Israel, to get Israel to bring him back and give him his territory, finance his military, train his police, and give his police the weapons. Yasser Arafat broke the Oslo Accord 8 years later, didn't even wait 10 years, and declared the second intifada in 2000, and all hell broke loose. He used the same treaty to win and deceive against his enemies and deceive his enemies. When Jordanian press, after Yasser Arafat signed the Oslo Accord with Israel, and Egyptian press would interview Yasser Arafat, and they would say, how could you sign a peace treaty with the devil? How could you sign a peace treaty with the Jews? Yasser Arafat will tell them, remember Hudaybiyah. That's all he would have to say. The whole Muslim world knew exactly what Yasser Arafat was talking about. We in the West and the Jews in Israel, it was over their heads. Nobody understood what Hudaybiyah was referring to.
So, 20 seconds left, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, there you have it. And I'm glad that she talked about how they would sign a treaty, Islam would grow. Tomorrow I'm going to conclude with the trial. Islam in a nutshell, the growth of Islam and the ramifications. My name is Michael B. See you tomorrow. 10 a.m. Central Time.